What's up guys, TopTierYugioh here, and this is going to be a discussion video, and I want to talk about one of the biggest differences that I've noticed between some of the best players and then average players. And so I really noticed this one thing at the last region I went to, is Fredericksburg on June 11th. And in one of the rounds, I played Tyree Tinsley. We were both undefeated at the point, and I was playing against him, and I had a flying C, so I felt pretty confident that I was going to be able to stop him. But a little backstory is that I used to not like playing Flying C at all, because I used to always feel that my opponent had the barrage, or they always had a Dryden already so they could destroy it, or they always just had different ways to out the Flying C. And so before maybe a few months ago, I wasn't playing Flying C. Like, I didn't play it when Zodiacs first came out, and I'm just starting to like it now, because again, I always felt that my opponents had the out to it. And so flash forward back to when I'm playing against Tyree Tinsley. He's going through his combo, and I Flying C him, and I'm feeling pretty good, and I'm just like, you know, if he has barrage, then he has it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But he did happen to have it. And so he barraged away my Flying C, and he killed me. And so then later that game, or I should say later that match, because I lost that game pretty quickly, but in the next game, I had bluffed a retaliating C at one point. And so then for the rest of the match, he did not use Fusion Substitute once. And he continued to play around retaliating C for the rest of the match. I didn't have it, but he played around it just in case, putting himself in positions to where he wouldn't lose to it. And again, that allowed him to beat me. And so he told me after the match, he told me about the Flying C. I guess it was a misplay. But he told me about a better time when I should have played it. He told me there were multiple points within the standard Zodiac play to where they would have already used Barrage if they could have. And so he said that those are the situations to where you should use your Flying C rather than at the point where I used it. And so it really sort of opened my eyes to how do pro players think. And I was already sort of aware of this, but I never really thought of it to this extent, or at least not at that point or about that card. But pro players don't often think about, you know, your opponent having those unsearchable outs to certain cards, but rather they think about how you can play around them, and they make reads on your opponent when they think they could have them. And so, for example, instead of looking at Flying C and saying that, you know, your opponent has all these outs to it like I did, Tyree was telling me that, you know, it doesn't matter if they have it or not, because you can play around them if they do have it. And it was the same with retaliating C. Like, I saw a lot of really average players talking about how they shouldn't play Fusion Substitute, how Fusion Substitute was bad because everyone was playing retaliating C, everyone was playing Flying C, everyone's playing all these hand traps, and so you don't want to play bricks just to play into the hand traps. That's not what the top players are saying. What some of the pro players are saying is that, you know, if your opponent has Flying C, then you play around Flying C, like you hold your barrage, or you make Dryden immediately. If your opponent has retaliating C, you play around retaliating C. If your opponent has Ash or Ghost Ogre, you play around these cards. You don't worry about them having it, you play around them in case they do. And so that was one of the biggest differences that I saw between pro players and average players. And you see this sort of thing in every format. Like, even now I see like Pendulum players talking about, or not just Pendulum players, but people talking about, should I pick up Pendulums even though there's Unending Nightmare, there's Anti-Spell, there's Strike, there's Warning, there's Barrier. There's all these cards that stop Pendulum decks. But my answer to that would be that if that deck is good enough, if it's as good as you think it is and as good as everyone thinks it is, then you should be able to play around those cards, and there are ways to play around them. There are ways to bait certain cards, force activations, and then play around it. There are ways that you can do things, like waiting till your opponent does certain things before you make your play. That was really vague, but there are ways you can play around the cards that you're generally worried about. Like, are you worried about Anti-Spell? Maybe you hold your Zodiac monster if you're playing Magician Zoo. Hold it until your opponent has it, and that's going to allow you to use Dryden to out their Anti-Spell. Or maybe hold your MST only for Anti-Spell, or your Cosmic Cyclone, your Twin Twister, whatever it could be. Hold your outs for it. Don't waste it on like an unknown back row, and your opponent ends up having Anti-Spell. Or maybe you're worried about Strike or Barrier. Well, Barrier, there's not too much you could do about, but if you're worried about a Strike, then maybe make the safe play. Don't Pendulum summon 5 monsters in the unknown back row. And so, some of the best players don't necessarily worry about what individual cards are going to stop them. They look at how they can play around those cards, playing the best deck. So it's like they play the best deck, the strongest cards, and then play around those cards that may stop them. So like Flying C is a really, really powerful card. It says your opponent cannot XZ summon, which against the Zodiac deck means you can't play. So instead of worrying about what outs Flying C, he plays Flying C, and then he worries, or not, I shouldn't say worries, but he plays it at the right time. He plays around the possible outs to it. Same with retaliating C. against Fusion Substitute. Like, Fusion Substitute is extremely, or was extremely powerful. But rather than looking at that and saying, well, my opponent might have Retaliating C, they might have Flying C, instead of looking at it like that, he plays around those cards. And he's still able to use the Fusion Substitute play and then draw the cards and, you know, do whatever you want to do. And so I hope this is sort of a lesson to all of you. Like, if you think that an idea is really, really good, if it's as good as you think it is, then there are probably ways to play around whatever problems you think it may face. And so you have to look at ways to play around those things, when to play your cards, when you get the most value out of them. Like, is it better for you to play your disruption card at one point or maybe later on within their standard combo? If they're deviating from the standard combo, then of course you have to look a little bit ahead, have some foresight, and see when you should be disrupting them. But nonetheless, don't let your opponents unsearchable cards scare you from playing what you think might be a good idea. Because if they have it, they have it, but you should be able to play around it. I know another example for me is like when playing sub-tiers, board wipes really, really suck. But instead of worrying about my opponent having a board wipe, I just hold the Fiendus in my hand, or I make sure that I summon a Fiendus, or I don't make a big board at all. Or if I make a big board, try to end on Naturia Beast so my opponent can't Raigeki or Slumber or Dark Hole me. And if I can't do that, then I don't make the big board, I make the safe play. And so you have to sort of do the same thing too. You have to recognize what outs your opponent could have. Like, what can you do that your opponent, or what can your opponent do that would hurt you, and then play around that. Make the safe play until you're positive that you can make the right play. Thanks for watching, guys. This was just a quick discussion video, a quick little story time, more or less. And so if you enjoyed this, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about this down in the comment section below. And be sure to subscribe once again, because my goal of this channel is to help you guys get better. And so the best way for you to help me help you is by subscribing, so that you're going to be notified next time I upload new content, so that it can help you. That's a lot of pronouns, but more or less, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.
Those cerulean tides, sapphire, sapphire.